Chapter 4. Division. Episode 1. The Hangover of Freedom. Scene 1. When the celebration ends.
Morning lingered longer than it should have. The heart clearing was still strewn with the gentle wreckage of the night before. Cups left where laughter had forgotten them, crumbs of shared bread, a chair tipped onto its side and never set right. Sunlight slid across the square in broad, generous strokes, warming everything it touched, as if determined to convince the world that nothing had changed. Grumpy stood near the remains of the old fence, what little of it was left after the uprising. He nudged a broken post with his boot, it fell over with a soft, satisfying thud. "Well," he grunted, a rare grin pulling at his face, "that's one problem solved." Nearby, the lame badger sat in the dust, sketching lines into the soil with a stick. Wide tunnels, open spaces, arrows pointing in every direction. "I'm thinking," he said aloud, mostly to himself, "I'll build the new den wherever I like. No permits, no boundaries, just space." The word lingered, buoyant and bright. The three were there together, for once without purpose. Teddy leaned back against the long table, arms folded, eyes half closed. Lucy sat beside him, feet dangling, letting the warmth soak into her bones. Thinksy lay flat on her back in the grass, watching clouds drift and rearrange themselves into impossible shapes. For a moment, it felt earned. Freedom, at last, without urgency, without eyes watching, without the constant need to respond, and yet, the forest did not relax with them. It was subtle at first, a thinning of sound. The birdsong did not stop, but it lost its playfulness, as if each note were being tested before release. The wind slowed, then held, hovering just above the clearing like a breath not yet taken. Teddy opened his eyes. He had learned, long ago, to trust that feeling, not fear, not instinct. Absence? The bass hum. The quiet, living resonance that had returned with healing. Did not deepen or swell, it hollowed. At the far edge of the Dreamwilds, beyond the last gentle slope of the Heartlands, something marked the sky. Not fire, smoke. A single, vertical line rose from the boundary of the northern shadows. Thick, black, unnaturally precise. It climbed without dispersing, as if the air itself had been cut and held apart. The sun dimmed as the line stretched higher, its light passing through the smoke and emerging sickly, yellowed, wrong. Colors did not fade, they warped. The green of the grass turned jaundiced, gold light soured into something brittle. Even Thinksy's silver glow, faint as it was in daylight, seemed to hesitate, flickering as if unsure which world it belonged to. No alarm sounded, no attack followed. Instead, a voice carried. It did not shout, it did not echo. It arrived exactly as it was meant to. Clean, controlled, impossibly close. From the edge of the north stood Arkhon, not the administrator, not the patient architect of order. This was something else. His posture was straight, his presence sharpened, every line of him aligned toward function rather than reassurance. The obsidian dark material of his form absorbed the distorted light without reflection. He did not advance, he did not retreat, he simply spoke. "He has awakened." The words landed with no emphasis, no explanation. They did not need one. The sound beneath the world shifted, not louder, lower. A vibration pressed up from beneath the soil, below hearing, below language. It was not pain, not yet, but it carried the unmistakable message of it. the kind of sound the body understands before the mind catches up, a wrongness that made stomachs turn and hearts stutter. Around the heart clearing, laughter died mid-breath. Grumpy stopped smiling, the lame badger's stick slipped from his paw. Binksy sat up, one hand pressed to her chest, her light dimming despite her effort to hold it steady. Lucy felt the warmth drain from the morning all at once, and Teddy stood. He did not look toward Arkhon immediately, his gaze moved instead to the sky, to the smoke that refused to disperse, to the sun struggling behind it. Freedom, he realized, had lasted exactly as long as it could, because a world without a plan does not remain empty, it invites something in. And whatever had awakened beyond the northern shadows was no longer content to wait. The morning did not end with screams or fire, it ended with silence, thick, distorted, and watching. The hangover had begun.
Scene 2, The Shadow of the Shadow.
No one was told to gather, they did so anyway. Fear has a way of organizing what joy leaves scattered. From every path leading toward the northern edge, figures emerged, some still clutching cups from the night before, others pulling coats around themselves as if the air had suddenly cooled. They did not speak much. When they did, it was in fragments, questions without destinations. The black smoke still hung in the sky, unwavering, a mark rather than a motion. Beneath it, Arkhon stood where the forest thinned, precisely where the Dreamwilds began to darken into the northern shadows. They formed a wide arc around him, careful not to step too close. The low vibration beneath the ground had not ceased. It did not grow stronger either, it simply persisted, like a thought the world refused to finish. The three arrived together, their presence cut through the murmur. Some turned with relief, others with expectation, a few with something harder to name. Grumpy's voice broke first. "We already won," he said, sharp and loud, as if volume could pin the morning back into place. "You don't get to summon us anymore, Arkhon." That ended last night. A ripple of agreement moved through the crowd. Lucy stepped forward, chin lifted. "There's nothing left to threaten us with. The system is gone, the fences are gone, whatever you're trying to do. Stop." Arkhon did not respond immediately. When he turned to face them fully, the certainty faltered. He looked afraid, not performative fear, not the controlled tension of strategy. His shoulders were rigid, as though holding something in place. His gaze did not settle on the crowd, nor on the three, but on the empty stretch of forest behind them. "You misunderstand," he said at last. His voice was steady, but it carried none of its former authority. It sounded instead like someone reporting a storm already visible on the horizon. "I am not here to command you." A pause, I am here to warn you." He raised one arm and pointed. Not toward the smoke, not toward the sky, but toward a gap between the trees, an unremarkable place, moss-covered trunks, stillness, the same path through which the queen had vanished the night before. "That is where she went." A murmur passed through the gathered animals and folk. Lucy frowned. "She left. We all saw it." "Yes," Arkhon replied, "you did." His hand lowered, fingers curling inward. "And you assumed that meant she was gone." Thinksy felt it then. A tightening behind her eyes, a familiar pressure that came whenever too many possibilities tried to exist at once. "She did not flee," Arkhon continued, "she withdrew." Grumpy scoffed. "You're saying she ran off to sulk?" Arkhon finally looked at him. "No," he said quietly, "I am saying she went to gather what was waiting." He stepped aside, revealing the devices strapped along his arm and embedded into the ground at his feet. Thin needles trembled against glass, rings of light pulsed. Slowly, insistently. Red washing over red. "Seismic patterns are shifting," Arkhon said. "The deep roots of the Dreamwilds are no longer at rest. Even the wind has turned against its own memory." Someone gasped. Another voice whispered, "Red means danger." Lucy took a step closer, eyes narrowing. "Those readings spike every seasonal change. You told us that yourself." Arkhon did not deny it. Instead, he inclined his head, just enough to seem reasonable. "Yes," he said, in isolation. He let the words hang, but nothing is ever isolated now. The low vibration beneath the ground seemed to align with his speech, as if the world itself were punctuating his pauses. "You broke the bindings," Arkhon went on, his voice gaining a careful weight. "You opened what had been sealed. Not out of malice, but out of mercy, out of compassion." Lucy's breath caught. "That compassion," Arkhon said, "was the door." The crowd shifted, some leaned closer, others stepped back. "You believed the storm had passed," he continued. "You mistook calm for conclusion, but what you felt last night was only the eye." He turned his gaze back to the forest. "The wind is returning." Thinksy looked at Lucy. She wanted to say something. Anything. To anchor the moment to what they knew, that the queen had walked away without rage, without summoning, without looking back, but knowing and feeling were drifting apart. Lucy swallowed. "What if," she began, then stopped. The silence around her was immediate. "What if she was pretending?" Lucy said softly. "What if we only saw what she wanted us to see?" Arkhon said nothing. He did not need to. The red light pulsed again. No one could see the queen, no army marched, no horns sounded, yet the emptiness beyond the trees felt suddenly occupied, not by something present, but by something approaching. The threat had no shape, which made it limitless, and as the hum beneath their feet continued, steady, patient, unresolved, the crowd began to understand the most dangerous truth of all. They no longer needed the queen to be afraid, they only needed to imagine her.
Scene 3. No time for councils.
For a moment, no one spoke, the red lights pulsed, the hum beneath the earth continued its patient, unbearable note. It was the lame badger who finally broke the stillness. He had moved closer without realizing it, his earlier sketches long forgotten, the stick still clenched between his claws. "So, oh," he said, carefully, as though testing thin ice, "what do we do now?" Several heads turned toward him, the question spread quickly, like a spark landing on dry ground. "Should we vote?" he added, "I mean, we're free now. This should be a decision we make together." The words "together" and "free" hung in the air, fragile and hopeful. Arkhon answered at once. "In the eye of a storm," he said, "one does not convene a committee." The bluntness of it cut through the murmurs. There was no anger in his voice. Only certainty, sharp and unyielding. "This is no longer a moment for discussion," Arkhon continued. "What approaches us will not wait for consensus." He straightened, and with a swift, practiced motion activated the final seal on his arm. The red lights flared, then stabilized into a steady, commanding glow. "Defense Protocol Omega is now in effect." The words did not ask to be understood, they expected to be obeyed. A ripple moved through the crowd. Not relief, not panic, but something dangerously close to surrender. Teddy felt it immediately. His mind, so recently at rest, snapped back into motion. Patterns assembled themselves with familiar ease. If the threat was real, then preparation was logical, necessary. Strategy had always been his language, long before intuition had led him astray. Perhaps, he thought, this is what responsibility looks like. Lucy stepped forward, shaking her head. "Wait," she said, raising her voice, "we don't need to rush into fear. We're together. We can face this without." Her words dissolved into the growing noise around her. Instructions were already being whispered, positions suggested, eyes turning back to Arkhon, hungry for clarity. Finksy pressed her hands against her ears. It did nothing. The fear was not a sound, it was pressure. Inside her chest, behind her eyes, in the spaces between breaths. She felt it ripple outward from the crowd, each anxious thought amplifying the next, until the clearing itself seemed to ache. She wanted it to stop, she wanted someone, anyone, to make it stop. Arkhon stepped forward. In his haste, his boot brushed against something small near the ground, the flower. The anomaly that had bloomed where nothing should. Bent, then snapped sideways beneath his heel, its petals folded into the dirt, crushed not with malice, but with complete indifference. No one noticed, no one had time to. Who? Arkhon was already speaking again. "Teddy," he said, turning decisively, "calculate defensive coordinates along the northern edge. We need range and fallback positions." Teddy hesitated, just long enough to feel the weight of choice. Then nodded. "Lucy," Arkhon continued, "organize a field infirmary near the heart clearing. If we are struck, we must be ready." Lucy opened her mouth to protest, then closed it, her hands curled into fists. "All right," she said quietly. Arkhon's gaze shifted one final time. "Finksy," he said, "come stand with me." She looked at him, not because she trusted him, but because standing still in the middle of all that fear hurt more. She took a step forward, then another. Around them, the clearing transformed. Not visibly, but irrevocably. Voices sharpened into orders, questions into assumptions. Freedom, so bright only hours before, retreated beneath the comforting weight of structure. No vote was held, no objection sustained, and just like that, without ceremony or declaration, command returned to the space it had vacated, welcomed back by those who had sworn they no longer needed it. The storm had not yet arrived, but the emergency had already begun.
Scene 4. The Shape of Command.
Arkhon climbed the stone without ceremony. It was not the tallest rock in the clearing, but it was the one that had always been used for speaking. Announcements, shared decisions, the occasional song. From there, the heart clearing opened outward like a held breath. He stood upon it now. Below him, the movement slowed, conversations thinned into murmurs, then into nothing at all. The crowd oriented itself instinctively, bodies turning, eyes lifting. Even those who had sworn never again to listen felt their attention pulled upward. The hum beneath the ground had changed. It no longer felt distant, it pressed closer, quicker, sinking itself to the pulse in their ears. Not a clock this time. No measured ticking. But a rhythm too fast to be calm, too steady to ignore. A heartbeat racing ahead of the body that carried it. Arkhon did not raise his voice. He did not need to. "There is no time," he said. The words fell into the silence like weights. No time to revisit what has already passed. No time to debate what cannot be undone. His gaze moved deliberately across the crowd. "Every second we spend arguing is a second the Queen gains." A subtle tightening passed through the listeners, as if the sentence had pulled something taut inside them. Arkhon turned his attention to the three. "Not together, one by one. Teddy," he said first, eyes locking onto him with precise intent, "you will refine the perimeter models. Assume worst-case scenarios. We cannot afford optimism." Teddy straightened. The logic was familiar, reassuring even. He nodded, already calculating angles and distances, feeling the old clarity return. Sharp, efficient, safe. "Lucy," her name landed differently. "You will oversee care and coordination within the Heartlands," Arkhon continued. "Fear spreads faster than wounds. Contain it." Lucy swallowed. She searched the faces around her, looking for reassurance, for recognition, but found only expectation. She nodded, slowly, her hands already moving as if the role had chosen her. "And Thinksy," the clearing seemed to hold its breath, "you will remain with me." Thinksy's light flickered, just once. "With you?" she asked quietly. Arkhon inclined his head. "You are sensitive to shifts before they become visible. I need that awareness close." What he did not say settled anyway, close enough to be guided. Thinksy stepped forward, not because she agreed, but because the pressure in the air eased when she did, just a little. The stone beneath Arkhon's feet anchored him higher than anyone else. From there, the world arranged itself into layers: command above, compliance below, tasks distributed, questions postponed. The rhythm beneath the ground continued, faster now, urging motion. There would be time to think later. There would be time to grieve what had been crushed, what had bent and broken unnoticed beneath a hurried step. Not now. Now there was only urgency, manufactured, relentless, contagious. And as the three stood separated by purpose rather than proximity, it became quietly, unmistakably clear: they had prepared themselves for peace. Arkhon had prepared for war. The hierarchy had not been announced, it had simply taken shape.